I'm Carey Pennington, and I'm a retired sergeant major from the military, from the Army, U.S. Army, and I was asked by Special Forces Association if I would kind of give an autobiography of my career and coming into Special Forces. I actually had about 13 years of active duty before I came into Special Forces. And total time was, I used to say 30 years, and then I said, and actually I got out to work overseas a little bit less than 30. So then I changed that and made sure I got it right so I would be politically correct. And it came out to be 29 years, 5 months, and 23 days. So now they can't get me for being politically incorrect. So anyway, I was drafted in 1965. I graduated from jump school. Well, first of all, I graduated from basic training, advanced individual training, and jump school, and was sent to Vietnam in November of '65. I was assigned to the 1st Cav Division in the Highlands, and believe it or not, I was in an airborne brigade. It's something that probably a lot of people don't know, that the 1st Cav had an airborne brigade, and anybody got to the 1st Cav, and as long as they stayed in the 1st Cav or the 1st Brigade until September of '66, they drew jump pay. We made one jump out of a helicopter, a pay jump, not a combat jump. But that's something that's kind of a lot of people don't know about. But after, of course, September of '66, if you got there later than that, you didn't draw jump pay in that brigade. After spending a year there, I spent the year and I was in the Highlands in An Khe. I always remember An Khe because it had a great big 1st Cav patch on the side of the mountain, Hong Kong Mountain. It was, anybody ever been in a jungle environment, Vietnam was definitely, the Central Highlands were very mountainous and very jungly. The worst, or at least any jungle that I can compare it to would be Panama, when I went to jungle school in Panama, because of the black, they call it the black vine or something like that, that you got. You grabbed that, I was like, you definitely knew about that. But anyway, Vietnam was a hard jungle, a lot of mountains, high mountains. We used to be climbing up them mountains, or like we used to say, fall up the mountains. And you can see C-130s flying below us in the valley, the aircraft. And sometimes we'd get on the wrong mountain. And that was a real good deal too. So anyway, that was most of the stuff in Vietnam, a lot of operations. Everybody said, oh man, you fly you fly everywhere, you're in the 1st Cav Division. Yeah, we flew until they put us down, and then we walked for 2 or 3 weeks on the ground, and they got picked up again at the end of the operation. So anyway, I returned from Vietnam, like I was saying before, in November of '66, went on leave, and I was assigned to the 101st Airborne in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I actually didn't stay there long because I left the service in March of '67 and had a break in service until April of '69. During that break time, I got married, and went to school for a while, and then I moved down. I lived in Northern California. My to-be wife lived in Alameda, and I lived north of that, around above Sacramento. And I moved down there where she was at, and we got married. And during that time, I also worked for a cab company, which in Oakland at night, I probably should have got a second award of the CIB. But anyway, that was another adventure. In April of '69, I came back on active duty. I got interested in flying, and I came back to actually go to Army flight school and become an Army helicopter pilot. Well, that didn't work out for me. And actually I stayed there waiting to be reassigned, and I volunteered to go to the 82nd Airborne. And I went to the 82nd Airborne, and it was like in November of '69. I got there, and I spent my time at the 2nd Bravo Company 2nd Battalion, 325, from 69, late 69, until May of 75. During that time, I went from being a rifleman, probably a POC, and team leader, and then a staff sergeant, squad leader, when I left the 82nd in May of 75. Just some of the things I got to do while I was in 82nd, besides just deploying a lot and a lot of recalls and alert calls and stuff like that, was I actually was in the first, and I don't know if it was the only, they probably might have done ones later, but I was in the first intentional water jump that the 82nd Airborne Division ever made. I believe it was on Mott Lake there at Fort Bragg. They made a lot of them during World War II, but they weren't intentional. And the Germans flooded the rice paddies and different landscape, farmland, when they jumped into Normandy. Also, I was fortunate I got to go and work with Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry in Canada, and we also got to go jump with the Canadians on that deployment. Came back from that, and actually I got to deploy on another thing overseas where there were only 2 of us from the 82nd that got selected for it. I don't know if everybody else didn't want to go or whatever, but anyway, it was 2 of us that went, and we went to England, firstly to the British Battle School, which is actually in South Wales, but we stayed with the parachute regiment in Aldershot for a little bit, a week or so, did some jumps, and then we went to South Wales. A lot of infantry tactics, squad leader stuff, and then we returned from that, and actually came home after that. Once my time was up in 82nd, I went to Ranger School in 73 while I was in 82nd also, and then I went to the advanced course once I came back from the deployment over to working with in the British Battle School, and I went to the advanced course, and after that I went to the 2nd Ranger Battalion here at Fort Lewis. Actually, there were guys when I was going through the advanced course that were from the 82nd that was actually activated in I believe October of 74. They were down there doing training. I met a lot of them guys before I even got to the battalion. Okay, in 75, again, like I said, in May, I ended up going to the Ranger Battalion, 2nd Ranger Battalion. And actually, my company commander was a Medal of Honor winner from Vietnam, Bob Howard. He was my first company commander in the Ranger Battalion. And I stayed in the Ranger Battalion for 2 years. And at that time, I actually put in to go to Special Forces when I was getting close to my 2 years being up. Well, not this 2 years is when I put in for it. It was up 2 years. And I put in to go to Special Forces training, and I got orders for overseas to Germany. Okay, I've been there, like I said, and I left in May of 77 to go to Germany. And I actually went to an organization in the 1st to the 10th in Batos, Germany, and it wasn't part of the battalion, but it was a separate unit out at Camp Orden. It was a place just outside of Batos, and it was like a mini ranger school. And most of the guys there were Ranger qualified, and some of them were SF qualified. And we actually, there was units that came out of the north that would come down, and we had about a 2-week, like I call it, a mini ranger school. The first week would be like land navigation and classes on tactics and all that kind of stuff. Then the second week in the summertime, it was, we would go and do an FTX in the field. Again, practicing the squad operation of platoon, raids, ambushes, and so forth. In the wintertime, because of the snow, all the snow and stuff, that we didn't actually run an FTX per se. We run what we called the Winter March, and that was pretty aggressive and challenging also, because we pulled what they called Akios, and you put all your equipment on them with snowshoes and stuff, and it was a pretty rugged adventure. We stayed, I stayed there until, let's see, I left there in 80, I'm sorry, April or May of 80, when I returned back to the United States. And that's when I went to the Q course. Went to the Q course in, like I said, May of 80, and spent 5 months there. I went as a weapons man, and once I graduated the Q course, I went to 10 Special Forces Group. Stayed in 10 Special Forces Group, again doing a lot of training. I went to a scout swim team. I was a weapons guy, and then the team sergeant that was there left, and I became the team sergeant for the majority of the time that I was in 10th group there. Some of this, we did a lot of deployments to Denmark. That was one of our key places that we used to go to in Europe, and of course Germany and some other places, but mainly Denmark, a lot of work. Did a lot of scout swimming. In fact, sometimes I thought I was in the Navy. We stayed in the water so much when I went on that team. So spent a lot of time on a scout swim team in the water. Then we actually, another highlights being in the 10th group there, I got to deploy with my team on an MTT and other people, NCOs and officers, a mobile training team to Lebanon. And I was on the 3rd MTT, and actually there was about, what I just read recently, there was about 17 MTTs that actually went there. My MTT, with the NCOs and officers from other teams also, there was about 23, 24 people I think total on it. And we got there, left in July, and we stayed there until just before Christmas in '83. We deployed and worked with the Lebanese army, and there was other factions in the country, a lot of Shiites and Druze and Muslim groups and terrorist groups and Christian phalanx, but we didn't work with them. But a lot of events going on. We worked down at the airport south of the main part of Beirut. We was in a hotel actually in Beirut. And I didn't find out till later, actually, we were supposed to be down at the airport where the Marines were stationed. And the Marines had the barracks down there. They also had tents, and they got a lot of shelling at all different times from the mountains over in the Shuf Mountains from the Syrians. And we were actually supposed to be stationed down there with them, but Colonel Potter, who was the 10th Group commander at that time, said he didn't want us down there, and we were actually in a hotel in Beirut, in West Beirut. And we stayed there, and again, we got a couple of times we got shelled down there, but we didn't stay down there all the time. We just trained down there. And then in September of '83, it really got bad there, and we actually moved from there up to a place called Juni, which was kind of western, but it was still along the coast, up further, kind of up north above Beirut itself. And then, of course, we were there when the bombing with the Marine barracks in October. I think it was the 23rd of October of '83. And we lost about 220 Marines. I think it was 20-some Navy guys, or 18, something like that. And then a couple, actually 2 or 3 Army guys, and some civilians and French paratroopers from another location at that time. We were very lucky, and we had actually had some of those guys from that Marine detachment up with us just to get a break from where they were at down at the airport down there, and just not long before that actually happened. So we finished our tour there, we returned, and I came back to 10th Group at Devens there, and then we stayed until I deployed from there, I was PCS'd and went to 1st Special Forces Group at Fort Lewis in, I believe it was May of '84. I went to Fort Lewis to Bravo Company, and I had a mountain team, and I became a team sergeant of that, of course, until I actually got picked for Sergeant Major sometime in '88. But I stayed with the team sergeant there, and then I left and went to, let me talk about Bravo Company a little bit. We stayed in, again, we trained, did a lot of training in Korea, but a lot of training as a team, and a lot of mountain training. I did a lot of mountain climbing and technical climbing around Montana and Leavenworth, Washington State. So that was a good time with the team, and then again I went to the Sergeant Major Academy, and let's see, me back up here. Left there in '88. It was, I believe, April or May of '88. I went to the Sergeant Major Academy at Fort Bliss, Texas. Stayed down there and graduated. I think that it started in July, and it was till January. I think January to July, if I'm not mistaken. It was about 6 months, and then I left there, went on leave, and I ended up assigned to Bravo Company, 1st Battalion out in Okinawa, 1st Battalion of Special Force Group, to B Company. Got there in February, and I stayed until November of '90, because during that time I got promoted to Command Sergeant Major, and so I left there in November of '80, went to the Command Sergeant Major course at Fort Bliss, and returned to Fort Lewis in December, late '88, I think it was, or I'm sorry, 90, late '90. And I stayed there, and let me back up about B Company a little bit. The B Company, we did a lot of training all over the Pacific, several times to the Philippines, Korea, but all over, a lot of teams, a lot of Thailand, a lot of places in the Pacific. Went there, and again, I returned to Fort Lewis, and was a Battalion Sergeant Major from December of '90 until I left in, actually October. I was still assigned October '96, but I'd left a few, 2 or 3 months, and was on terminal leave. And so October '96 was the end of my actual career. And I retired in October, but I actually left the unit probably in 2 or 3 months before that, and got a job working in Bosnia as a contractor. Again, when I was in 2nd Battalion, we did a lot of training in in Korea, and a lot of training in Alaska. And at that time, there was, if you was in 2nd Battalion, that's where most of the time you went, as far as a battalion or a company. And sometimes the teams went to a lot of the other locations, out in Okinawa and Philippines and those places, Thailand. But in 2nd Battalion, at that time, the main elements, our main training was in Alaska, and actually the main training was in Korea. We did a lot of work in Korea. When I get another highlight from my time in 2nd Battalion, the winter, I retired, like I said, in '96, but in the winter, early months of '96, we actually Had some people from the element, myself included, the battalion commander, Colonel Firth, and different people, team sergeants and some team members, and we did the Iditarod. I guess anybody's ever heard of the Iditarod race that in Alaska that do every year. And we did it with snowmobiles, and we actually had big snowmobiles that actually pulled these big Occhios I was talking about before. Pulled them, and that's why we had our equipment on. Of course, we camped out, and sometimes we slept on our snowmobiles, but we went and, but one of the problems was that when we got there, we were waiting for our snowmobiles to come from Fort Campbell. They just bought them, I guess, and they were coming, and they didn't get there till later on in the winter. I mean, a couple of weeks after the actual race is run. Most of the time, them guys that run those races on snowmobiles, and it takes them, like I said, a couple of days. It took us more than that, because it took us as long. I think it was probably close to a week and a half, 2 weeks. It took us as long on our snowmobiles and Occhios as it did for the teams that the dogs pulled, the dog teams. So it took us a long time. We had a lot of the stuff was melting. Actually, we sunk a couple of snowmobiles crossing some of the rivers, and so that was another adventure in itself. But that was quite enjoyable. All the people I worked for in all these units, let me tell you, they were superb men, and really loved them all. They do anything for you. Actually, I retired, and like I said, went on to work as a contractor. But it was never the same as working with you people in all these units I worked in. And I guess that's the main thing I wanted to talk about. And that's pretty much wraps up my career. I might have left out a couple of things, but it pretty much, I think that's where I'm at. So thank you very much for allowing me to do this. I'm honored by it. And again, can't overstress the people that I worked for and worked with and worked under me. I really loved being in the military and Special Forces too, especially.